The Andy Pollin Show.
We got to go after this with everything we got, figuring they're going to come with everything they got.
I'll start off by saying I'm bored, I'm broke, and I'm back.
The Andy Pollin Show on ESPN 630 starts right now.
Frustrated, disappointed. We all miss the mark. The kind of things that coaches and players say in a 4-10 season that will finish with a backup quarterback and hope that things will get better for next year. But, wow, talk about a swing of the pendulum. The highest of highs almost last year where they got to within a game of the Super Bowl to this year where they're playing out the string without their injured stars and no hope whatsoever. Merry Christmas. I'll cheer you up. Frank Caliendo as Mel Kiper analyzing the reindeer. Got your attention there? We'll do that before the end of the show. Yeah, I've been in this spot many times over the years talking about the local tackle football team, whatever name they were, the Redskins, Washington football team, and now the Commanders. And there is no such thing as completely turning the page, right? I mean, we all felt that way last year. Oh, good. New ownership, new coaching staff, new hope, new quarterback, the whole thing. But it's not a straight line to success, and there are ups and downs along the way, and this has certainly been a downer of a year. We'll get to what was said yesterday in Ashburn. Now, usually it's a day off on Tuesday, but because they're playing on Saturday night, the schedule gets changed. So today is sort of like a Thursday. We'll hear from the coordinators and play the game on Saturday at 5 o'clock. And then they got the short week because they've got Dallas coming in on Christmas Day, and then a long period off. It's what a crazy schedule. They're going to have 10 days off before they play the last game, which could be meaningless for both teams. Philadelphia may be playing for playoff position, but assuming they take care of business here on Saturday and beat the Commanders, they clinch the division, and then it's just a question of positioning for the playoffs. They're not going to get the number one seed. They're probably not the best team in the NFC this year, but you never know. You know, playoffs change a lot of things, but most of the people who follow the league are saying right now the Rams are the team to beat. We'll see. We'll see what goes on there. Anyway, we got the first public comments from Jayden Daniels yesterday. First time since it was announced on Monday by Dan Quinn that he was going to be shut down for the rest of the season, that he has not been medically cleared to play. So this is not really like the Robert Griffin III shutdown in 2013 when he was healthy. And Mike Shanahan, who couldn't stand him by then, knew he was going to get fired with a record of 3-10, said that the reason they were shutting him down was they wanted to make sure he was healthy for the offseason. The previous offseason, of course, he'd been rehabbing the knee injury, had the ACL surgery, didn't participate in any of the training camp practices or the exhibition games, but did a video with Gatorade claiming he'd be all in for week one, and he couldn't renege on his promise to Gatorade, so he started the opener, and he had a terrible year, and Mike Shanahan got fired at the end of that year. But Jayden Daniels has not been cleared to play, so that's the important thing. However, we went from over a period of time where they lose the Minnesota game 31-0, and he gets knocked out after banging his elbow on the turf, and he doesn't come back in the game. And Dan Quinn says afterwards, well, he was cleared to play, but I didn't think it was a good idea to bring him back. We were off. I'm paraphrasing here. And then we get to Monday, and we find out, well, everything's tracking. It's fine. He could play, but we'll know more as the week goes on. And on Wednesday, even before they practice, Dan Quinn declared him out, said he wouldn't play against the Giants last week. And then after sitting out the Giant game, you would have thought, well, okay, maybe there's a chance that at least they'll put him on the field for the last three to see what they've got and to continue his improvement as a young quarterback. But no, he's been shut down. So the question yesterday to Daniels was, when did it change? When did it go from cleared to return to the game against Minnesota to now being shut down for the season?
Next day, that's kind of when you really, everything settles down. And I just woke up the next day, I did some tests, felt it in different things, and, just kind of just being honest and going forward, because longevity is a big thing, so you want to be smart with these type of things.
How tough was that moment?
Super tough, man. I don't want to miss games at all. I've been frustrated this whole season missing games. I want to be out there to help my teammates as much as possible. So it's just been a frustrating year, disappointing year, but you learn from it and we move forward.
Frustrating, disappointing, only 7 games played. Far cry from last year where we started all 20. And you just kind of reset and move on for next year. As far as analysis of what this season was, I mean, it doesn't take much to describe it in words, but this is what Dan Quinn said about the season that Jayden Daniels has had.
We've all missed the mark. And so there'll be a number of things that all of us, we're going to go through a full process to this is what we're going to do, this is how we're going to fix it, this is where we're going to go at him, at coaching, at everything. So I'll give you a better sense, once I have more time to go through everything.
With the practice, what is the plan? Like, what things will he be working on in practice? How do you go about that to, again, others are preparing for games, you want to prepare them for other things. Like, What is the plan for him in practice? What kind of things will you be doing?
Well, there'll be some out-of-the-pocket things or some progression things that he'll go through. He'll work some of the scout cards on concepts that we have. So it'll be a little bit of a mix. Today's not quite as much. We're not going as fast. But even then, there's some post-practice work that he'll do too, John. So we felt like we got these 3 weeks. Can we get, very customized and specific of things outside the pocket first? And once we do that, then we thought that's how we'll, see how we can take best advantage of this. And I'll remind everybody, he wasn't cleared to play, and I think that's important, part of this to know that, he's wanting to, and so we're not there, and so this was the right call, even though it was a difficult one.
Yeah, I understand that, but Scott Abraham asked the other day if you were 10-4 instead of 4-10, would he be shut down? And Dan Quinn danced around it by saying, "Well, we didn't have that discussion because we're not 10-4." So he didn't really say, "Look, he's hurt. If he was not hurt, he'd be playing." He didn't say. It's more complicated than that. Here's more from Jayden on the shutdown.
It was obviously disappointing. I'm a competitor. I want to play, but I wasn't medically cleared to go, and sat down, talked to DQ and AP, and made the decision.
How do you feel physically?
I'm getting better. I mean, like I said, I didn't meet the markers to be cleared for contact and clear for this game, so now it's just focused on getting healthy and preparing for next year.
What's this season been like for you, just in general?
Frustrating, disappointing, a lot more emotions, but very much probably a lot of adversity that I've dealt with, on the field for the most part, and, just trying to learn and keep moving forward.
What have you learned about yourself during this time because of all that?
Man, I haven't really sat to reflect, but I'll say the main one is it's not easy to rehab and get back out there, especially after something so traumatic like that. So just the perseverance and really just the passion and the want to be the best version of myself for my teammates.
So it's Marcus Mariota's team for the rest of the season, and it's a fine line that he walks there. He's got to take over as the leader of the team for the last 3, but he's got to be deferential to Jayden Daniels because Jayden Daniels is going to be the quarterback of this team next year. I wonder about the future of Mariota. He does seem to like it here, and maybe it's possible he comes back for a 3rd year, but he'll be a free agent at the end of the year. In the meantime, he's not only serving as the starting quarterback, but still serving his mentorship to Jayden Daniels and offered this as advice that he would give him.
They're building for the future, and he should feel confident in that. They're making a decision that they feel is best for the entire organization. And, at the same time, it's tough as an athlete. You want to be out there. We all understand that. We know that for Jay. So just being here for him, being out here in practice, and finding ways to just help him improve.
You've been through a situation where you've had to sit out like this, so what kind of lessons did you learn there that you can impart to him?
Yeah, really, well, it just comes down to when you're not playing, you have an opportunity to kind of see it from a different lens. And unfortunately, I think he's had a few opportunities to do that this season. And there's always things that you can kind of learn and absorb. And I think he's done a great job of just understanding that and doing his best to ask questions and see where he can learn.
conversely, how is he maybe helping you? He's out there practicing without the possibility of playing, which is probably new for him, but how is he helping you in sort of a support role getting ready for the Eagles?
Yeah, absolutely. Just throughout the preparation, things that he felt during the games that he played in, and also just what he's seen on tape. And at the same time, it's always been about whoever the guy's playing. We just try to do whatever we can to help them out, and that's been no different with Jay, and I appreciate that. I know that's not an easy role to be in, and he's been great at it.
Off field, you've had frustrating moments in your career, ups, downs, whatever. Do you try to tell him anything off the field to get his mind off football or something else to focus on, just because he's got to be frustrated?
For sure, and just be himself. And regardless of the situation, circumstance, never lose that. He's such a great dude that the frustrations and those things, they can amount to maybe him being not who he is. And just, I think the same advice that I've tried to give some of our younger players is don't let this day-to-day job kind of change who you are. And I think he's kind of taking that with great respect, and whatever we can do to help him and manage it during this time. But he's got a smile on his face like he always does, and we appreciate that.
That's Marcus Mariota after practice yesterday, and you hope that he stays healthy for the last 3 games. But what we've seen in the past week with Phillip Rivers has changed a lot of minds about quarterbacks who played somewhat recently and might just have an interest in coming back. Yeah, I mean, look, Phillip Rivers doesn't play for 5 years. He's sitting on his couch the previous Sunday, finds out that Daniel Jones is out for the year with a torn Achilles, shows up a day later in Indianapolis, throws the ball around. I'm sure they didn't put him through a conditioning test because he looked a lot more like Albert Hainsworth than he did the last time he walked off the field. But, even with the portly look, he comes out and he acquitted himself well. He didn't have magnificent numbers, but he almost pulled off a huge upset on the road at Seattle, and now he'll be the starting quarterback on Monday Night Football against the San Francisco 49ers. So Liam Griffin of the Times did a story which includes a couple of interesting quotes from the weekend pregame shows, which just had me thinking this. Again, you hope that Marcus Mariota stays healthy for the rest of the season. But let's just say, and again, hope it doesn't happen, but let's just say there's a season-ending injury on Saturday night. You got 2 games to go. The quarterbacks who will be left on the roster are Josh Johnson, who's 39 years old. He started 9 games in a career that began God knows when, but he's been with 14 different teams over 10 years. He's been here twice, and the one start that he won was as a Redskin in 2018. That would be your starting quarterback. And then behind him would be Sam Hartman, who has never taken a regular season snap, and frankly, I was surprised he made the team after how he looked in the preseason. So those are your 2 quarterbacks left on the roster. And Matt Ryan said on CBS, he says, I've had these feelings where I've been sitting and watching games and been like, man, I think I could go out there and do it. And he has played more recently than with the Colts than Phillip Rivers had played previous to Sunday. He played in 2022 because he actually came after both Rivers and Carson Wentz. Remember, Carson Wentz was cut by the Colts after 2021, and then Matt Ryan went there. And I'll tell you this about Matt Ryan. I've seen him in a suit anyway. He looks a hell of a lot better shape than Phillip Rivers. I'm just wondering, with the history of Dan Quinn, they went to a Super Bowl together. Might it be possible he would get a call? Again, I hope Mariota stays healthy. Just saying, it's something to think about. Tom Brady even threw it out there that he thought he could play today. And what the point of the story from Liam Griffin here is that the game is so much mental now. And Rivers proved that. He can't move at all. He doesn't have much of an arm, but he gets it out quickly and he delivers it accurately. And he's able to read where the defense is. Yeah, he threw an interception, but that was sort of a Hail Mary thing at the end of the game. I mean, they were just trying to make something happen downfield with no timeouts left. I think there was like 35 seconds left in the game, something like that. And so when you look at how the game is played today with guys who come in with offenses that are catered to pretty much what they did in college, if you've got a guy who knows how to analyze defenses and can read them and has great experience playing the game, it's a helpful thing. And he's got some quotes here from Kurt Warner, Hall of Fame quarterback. He says, they teach the quarterback to read the short throw first and then move deeper, one that messes up his footwork and timing, so it's rough when a defense plays it well, Warner wrote on X. Also, it can often force a quarterback to rush through a progression to get to the next read, and that may be what you see in terms of being chased off throws. The numbers back them up. The average NFL passer rating under pressure has ticked down since 2018, according to Next Gen Stats, which makes sense. And, Peyton Manning, very similar to Phillip Rivers throughout his whole career. Not a great arm, couldn't move at all, but could read defenses, knew where the ball was going, and delivered it faster than anybody else. And so I'm just throwing this out there, and here's another one to think about. Let's say Rivers finishes up well enough to get the Colts in the playoffs. It's still a long shot. But even if he doesn't, and he plays well over the last 3, I don't know if he's going to come back at the age of 45, but it might get guys like Matt Ryan thinking. Ryan doesn't turn 41 until May of next year. So is it possible? I'm just saying that if he's looking to come back, who would be the first person he'd call? Probably Dan Quinn. And who knows who's going to be the offensive coordinator next year, because I don't think Cliff Kingsbury is coming back. Be surprised if he does. Get a hiring cycle that's going to start in a few weeks, and it's always 7 or 8 guys. We already got a few openings now, including the Giants, which may make sense for him. So I wonder what's in store for the quarterback position with what we're seeing from Phillip Rivers. Has he changed the game a little bit, and has he gotten teams thinking about it? Because, Ryan would be coming here as a backup. Now, whether he wants to do that at this stage of his life, who knows? But here he is admitting on the set, yeah, I've been watching games, and I was thinking, maybe I can do this. And now that somebody has cracked through on this, and somebody that's now built like an egg and didn't crack, how's that for a metaphor, that maybe that's something that he might think about. I don't know. It's just a crazy thought to throw out there, but why not? What else do we have to talk about in a 4-10 season? Wild speculation. We'll see. All right, coming up, more on the Rivers situation, and 2 former offensive linemen weigh in, including a Hall of Famer. We'll get to that and more as we continue. It's the Andy Pollin Show, ESPN 630.
The Andy Pollin Show on ESPN 630, the sports capital.
So if you'd have told me a few weeks ago that the talk of the NFL would be an aging quarterback, or better yet, a really old quarterback, I'd have thought, okay, well, Aaron Rodgers is gunning the Steelers into the playoffs. Good for him. The name Phillip Rivers would have been so far from my thoughts, or anybody's thoughts at this point. But especially with people who are older and do what I do, this is just amazing to us, because we know what it's like to get older. And, 44 is in the rearview mirror for me a long way, but as you age, it's more and more difficult to do the things that you used to do. So to see a guy who hasn't played in 5 years put on some weight, but still can come out and get it done and almost pull off an enormous upset on the road at Seattle has people just amazed by it, including Mark Schlereth, who played in the NFL, well, probably retired, 25 years ago, something like that. Played with the Broncos on their 2 Super Bowl teams, won a Super Bowl here with the Redskins last time around, and now an analyst with Fox on the Rich Eisen show yesterday, shaking his head at this like everybody else.
Dude, how crazy is that? And what statement does that make about the NFL? The NFL in general right now, I was talking to a defensive coordinator here recently, 2 weeks ago, the current coordinator in the league, and he said never has there been a time in the NFL where there's more arm talent and less quarterbacks. And and I was like, wow, that's really good, because it's true. And it's not college's job. I understand it's not the college's job to develop quarterbacks for the NFL. They're playing the style with which they play. But man, I'm telling you what, it says a lot when there's not one guy on somebody else's practice squad, not one guy in your own practice squad or your backup that you feel like gives you a better chance to win than 44-year-old Phillip Rivers. And, I mean, he shot put. He did give me vibes of the hefty lefty Jared Lorenzen, God rest his soul. But, he came out there competitive. They did a great job from a game planning standpoint of getting the ball out of his hands quickly, lots of screens, a lot of quick game, just moving the ball, that classic Phillip Rivers shot put style. But he gave them a chance at the end of that game where they kick a 60-yard field goal from Groupie to go ahead in that game. And, Seattle drives it back down, and Matt, I'm sorry, Sam Darnold does a great job finding Rashid Shaheed and creating a couple of big throws to end that game with a 55-yard field goal. But just an amazing game, an amazing accomplishment. And I loved what Phillip had to say, because I just believe in this. Fear sets so many of us back. Fear keeps us from doing things that we want to do just because we're afraid of the outcome. And Phillip said, the easy decision would be to sit home. The easy decision would not be to do it, but I'm not going to let fear kind of capture me. I'm going to go ahead and face that, stare that fear down and go out there and give it my best. And there's a very valuable lesson that Phillip Rivers kind of taught us all in that moment. And I really appreciate what he said, and I really appreciate him, putting it on the line and going out there and playing.
That's Mark Schlereth, who spent the back half of his career blocking for one of the best of all time and a mobile quarterback in John Elway. And then the first half of his career blocking for a basically immobile quarterback, but one who won a Super Bowl MVP and was only sacked seven times in the entire 1991 season. That's Mark Rippon. So he knows about blocking for quarterbacks, all kinds of different quarterbacks. Joe Thomas blocked for a bunch of them, none of them very good in his long run with the Cleveland Browns. He's in the Hall of Fame now. He was on with Dan Patrick yesterday and was asked about if you were in that position, like the Colts lineman on Sunday, blocking for a guy like Phillip Rivers.
There's definitely going to be some decisions in their minds about, okay, I got beat. Should I just let him go and not get a penalty? Or should I save this man's life, who's the same age as my dad, and just go and tackle him around the knees and not allow anybody to touch my quarterback? Because, there's a lot of pressure. There's a lot of pressure when you got a quarterback that can move a little bit and that's young and that can withstand some hits. But I'm not sure that Phillip Rivers is there anymore.
Yeah, but he's out there. He's out there. He's
giving it his best. I give him credit. I mean,
okay, how did we get to this point, Joe? That our best option is a 44-year-old guy who hasn't played in 5 years and never had a strong arm and certainly doesn't have that now.
He did a pretty good job last weekend. I'm not sure how long he's going to be able to do it. I mean, hey, he gave his team a chance to win.
He did, but the defense gave them a chance to win. They played really good defense. Phillip had a touchdown pass. Look, I know it's a great story, but I gotta call it as I see it. His arm is so weak, and I'm just amazed that some of those passes, they're bad. Really, they just float.
I mean, they were floating when I was playing and when Phillip was 30 years old. So you can only imagine it's probably not going the other direction. So you give him credit, but it does say something about the development of that quarterback room in Indianapolis, that they didn't trust any of those guys. They'd rather have Phillip come off the couch at 44 with a noodle arm and say, hey, here you go, prop him up there. Hopefully you can give us at least a few passes without throwing an interception and we might win the game.
That's Joe Thomas, Hall of Fame lineman for the Cleveland Browns, one of the best to do it. Jeff Saturday, very good. Also blocked for one of the best to do it in Peyton Manning. Also not the fleet of foot, even in his prime, but, could obviously read defenses. Also didn't have that great of an arm. He was on with on PTI yesterday. I guess Saturday's on every week. And the question was, and I brought this up a couple of days ago, it's a good question. Okay, now that there's something on tape, not from the Phillip Rivers of 5 years ago, but for the Phillip Rivers of last week and what he looks like now, what do you do defensively now that you've got that to work with, as the 49ers will play the Colts on Monday night? What did they do to try and attack what is, probably some pretty evident weaknesses on tape?
press the line of scrimmage, right, get tighter, understanding when you looked at it, really most of the passes he threw were coming out pretty quick and they're pretty short from a catch and go run. And so to get him to hold the ball longer, how do you change your coverages up so that he has to sit in the pocket? You adjust his timing, like his footwork, because patience is probably the hardest thing for a guy who hadn't been hit in a long time to, he gets that itch of wanting to let the ball go. And I would say that would be kind of thing. Once teams zone in on how far they think you're willing to push the ball down the field, they will creep up and make it very difficult. At some point, Rivers will have to take kind of the belt off, right? The training wheels off of him coming back and let the thing rip a few times, because you're going to have to back those guys off and not let pressure get to you, because as an offensive lineman, he's a sitting duck. You're going to protect like crazy, but at some point they know where he is, and the ball's got to come out. So that would be the only thing that I would say teams will begin to adjust on.
Let's go to a quarterback who's 14 years younger, Patrick Mahomes. And Jeff asked you, if you were one of Mahomes' teammates, how uncertain would the future feel right now?
Not at all. Listen, I'm going to tell you, Patrick Mahomes, this is just a retooling, in my opinion, right? Like where the Chiefs are, the Chiefs have rested on Patrick Mahomes. And in all due respect, it worked, right? I mean, how many Super Bowls has the guy gone to, right? You won 3. Like, it's worked. Like, you can't blame him. But you saw this year there was way too much reliance on, Mahomes save us type thing. And unfortunately, they had drops, whether it was Rice or Worthy or Kelsey at times. They didn't run it very well. Their offensive line got banged up. There are a lot of pieces of the point. They need to kind of have, if you remember a few years ago when they brought in like Humphrey and Smith and Bolton and they got McDuffie, right? And they got juiced up a little bit, right? Young, energetic, all made impacts. They need another one of those kind of draft classes where they're developing guys. For Mahomes can carry it, but it can't only be one guy, and they just kind of got caught. And even Andy Reid and Nagy, it was a little stale. Like if you look at you look at Ben Johnson and Liam Cohen and McVay, like their offenses are a little more, they're doing a little more than Andy Reid, which you would have never thought. So I think this invigorates that Chiefs team. I think they start a new phase and no real worry once he gets past, obviously, the rehab portion of the surgery, what's 9 months or whatever that is. I think I would feel completely comfortable with how Mahomes will attack the next part of his career.
All right, that's enough quarterback talk. We got to get to some defense talk here, particularly for those of us who will be in Soldier Field watching Bears-Packers on Saturday night. I was fascinated when you compared Micah Parsons this morning on Get Up to a quarterback and his importance to a quarterback. Jeff, can you elaborate on that?
No, absolutely. You think about, okay, so let me put this in perspective. He's had 64 quarterback pressures this year, or that was kind of the running total. The next highest on his team right now has 28, Rashawn Gary. Okay, so just think about that discrepancy. And now think about every player on your defense plays and has predictions based on him getting that pressure, right? Like defensive backs can see when there's no chip help or there's no tight end on his side or they don't feel like they're going to slide his way. They know ball's coming out quick. I'm going to climb up a little bit and play this tighter, or I'm going to play inside leverage, right? Like defenses work together, and he was the quarterback of it. Everything came off of what can Micah Parsons do for the defense that everybody else can kind of take note. He multiplies, right? It's a force multiplier. He understood that by him playing well, everybody else could play well around him. That is a massive loss, and it is equal to losing a quarterback on offense. This was a massive loss for the Packers. And listen, people are bashing me because I said it's going to affect their Super Bowl chances. It will. They brought him in for a reason, Mike. Like you and I both, they had this defense before that was close to being a top 5 or top 10, whatever it was. That wasn't good enough. You want to win the Super Bowl, you need a closer. He is the closer. Unfortunately, they lose him, man, for all of us, because I wanted to see it in the playoffs, and unfortunately, we're not going to be able to see it for at least another year.
This is very interesting that you would say that was a massive loss. You've said that all year. You've said that only one other time about Lane Johnson. You said that was a massive loss. This is only the second time. We will get you out of here on this. It's easy to see how the cold affects receivers and quarterbacks. It's harder to catch the ball. It's harder to throw the ball. It's harder to grip the ball in the cold. The position you play, offensive lineman, does the cold affect offensive linemen and defensive linemen at all?
Oh, yeah, especially them ends. They get a little worried about their hands, your face mask hits the hand, or you trap them down and slap them down, their head hits that dirt. It's a lot harder when it's cold than when it's warm. But nobody likes to get beat around when it's 17 degrees out there, right? So as an offensive lineman, I always thought it was our advantage, because we know where we're going. Hopefully we get there a split second ahead, and oftentimes we're double teaming a guy, right? So you're trying to finish and make sure you're laying the hat on him a little extra, making sure if you see his fingers near a pile, maybe slide your cleat over it a little bit, just make him think about that cold and that pain, because that's the joy and the beauty of that O-line, D-line battle, man. They ain't nothing. And listen, they do the same. Don't let them church it up. I ain't gonna let them. They would do it to me. I'm sitting down. I took a lot of shots underneath those piles, so I don't feel bad for them either. It's just all part of it.
That's Jeff Saturday about playing in the cold. Realize he played all of his home games throughout his career indoors. Now, I had some battles like, with the Patriots and the playoffs, and they did have to play some outdoor games. But half of every season, he knew he was playing at 72 degrees. So, not that takes away anything. It's just perspective of somebody who played home games indoors. We'll have more on the cold coming up. But Jim Harbaugh's got a warm weather team, the Chargers, primed for the playoffs. They're in. He talks about December football and what it's all about, and also he knows about playing in the cold because grew up in Michigan and played quarterback at Michigan and played for the Bears for a while as well. This is interesting to me because it seems like if you put the Cowboys on primetime TV, no matter what their record is, they crush. I mean, it doesn't matter if they're good or bad. They dominate the discussion on ESPN. They are America's team, for better or for worse. Jerry Jones is always at the center of attention, and people are always interested in the Cowboys. They are always on primetime television, and we'll see them a week from tomorrow when they come here to play Washington on the Christmas Day game. But this past week, they played Sunday Night Football, and they played Minnesota, and the number was 21.9 million viewers, which I'm sure is very good, and NBC is happy with that. But the Packers and the Broncos, which went against the Lions and the Rams, really good late window last week. Really great games in the late window. That drew 24.5 million on CBS. So a game on Sunday afternoon, which did not involve the Cowboys, got more viewers than a Cowboys game in primetime on NBC. I mean, that's not, going to make everybody go crazy about whether or not you should put the Cowboys on primetime TV. And as a matter of fact, the Thanksgiving Day game between the Cowboys and the Chiefs is, I think, the highest rated regular season game maybe ever. It was something like over 50 million people watching that late window game on Thanksgiving Day. So the Cowboys are still an enormous draw. So it's I guess newsworthy when they get outdrawn playing in prime time by an afternoon game, and the Broncos are one hell of a story. I looked at Sean Payton in his year on TV and said, he's not really good on TV. He may want to coach again. He may get another shot. He gets his shot with Denver. It goes terrible with Russell Wilson. And now he got his quarterback. He got Bo Nix, and the rest is history. And this could be, well, he's older now, so he's not going to have, the kind of run that he had with Drew Brees. But you give that coach a quarterback, he can do really good things. And the Broncos have been one heck of a story this year. All right, coming up in the next hour, more on the Jayden Daniels shutdown, plus NFL notes around the league, including what's the Joe Burrow situation in Cincinnati. It's the Andy Pollin Show, ESPN 630. Oh, where have you gone, Jason Worth? Remember when the Nationals signed Jason Worth for a lot of money and people went, oh, they're really serious. Those days are long gone. Max Scherzer ain't walking through that free agent door. Just not happening. And how long is it going to be before this young crew puts the team back in contention? Well, their opening signing doesn't really excite me. I don't know if it excites you. We'll get into that, more on the Jayden Daniels shutdown, and before we scoot over for Bram, Frank Caliendo analyzing Santa's reindeer. If you missed it yesterday on the Rich Eisen Show, we'll replay some of that coming up just before 11 o'clock today. I saw this signing today, and I wouldn't know Foster Griffin from Foster Brooks, and that's an old reference for you, a politically incorrect comedian who portrayed a drunk, if you don't remember. That's going back over 50 years. But the new president of baseball operations, the very young Paul Taboni, has fired his first free agent salvo, or anyway, something like that. He's gotten his first free agent. I don't know if he can get excited about this, but Foster Griffin at one point was a first-round pick of the Kansas City Royals. Drafting baseball players especially is an inexact science, and he has had a couple of quick stints in the major leagues. He pitched for the Royals briefly, spent 6 years in the minors. He was with the Toronto Blue Jays briefly in 2022 and has spent the last 3 years pitching in Japan, which is, not a bad place to find talent. There are some who make that transition and pitch pretty well, but he's 30 years old, left-hander. Left-handers are valuable, I'll give you that. But he gets a one-year deal, $5.5 million. And is that going to be indicative of what they do in free agents this year? I sadly think it is going to be. I think that's the way things operate here now. We'll see what happens with Mackenzie Gore, but he's the subject of trade rumors, and he has been arguably their most consistent pitcher in the last couple of years. Cade Cavalli, who was their first-round pick, was pitching pretty well at the end of the year. He's got a history of injury, so we don't know. Then they got pitchers that are coming off injuries. DJ Hers, Trevor Williams, Josiah Gray, who was an all-star in 2023. He has not pitched since April of 2024, so he's missed almost 2 full seasons. He agreed to $1.35 million for a contract to avoid arbitration. And Taboni said Gray is still recovering from surgery. So I think his future is very much in doubt. And here's something else. It's maybe nothing that's a big deal, but you got Paul Taboni, young guy, and he doesn't have a lot of experience with other organizations. So when they made a deal, this is not a big thing, but they traded a couple of prospects, and they did it with the Red Sox. And this is the kind of thing that happens. You deal with people that you are familiar with, and there's that. So you got to give them a chance. But you got a 32-year-old GM president and a 33-year-old manager who never managed above A-ball before, and the free agent market includes now the free agent signing, the biggest one so far. It's the first one, but it doesn't appear like they're going after any big fish. The first free agent signing is a big yawn. 30-year-old left-hander bounced around pitching in Japan. Okay, all right, let's find out. Let's find out if, in fact, we've got something here in Washington that will be something to get excited about. If Foster Griffin makes the All-Star team, then I'll shut up. But there's that. All right, Jayden Daniels talking to reporters yesterday. First time he's talked since it was announced on Monday by Dan Quinn that he's being shut down for the rest of the season. He went from could have returned to the Minnesota game to the following day. He's on track. We'll see how the week plays out to Wednesday before practice. Even before they had a full practice, Dan Quinn says, oh, yeah, he's not going to play this week against the Giants. We'll see what happens next week. He doesn't play against the Giants. And on Monday, he says, we made a decision. He's shut down for the rest of the year. This is Daniels on what changed over that period of time.
I mean, adrenaline is a hell of a drug, so that's a big one. But things change, once stuff settled down.
It's probably unfamiliar territory for you, practicing with, you're not going to play, but how engaged are you in the game plan and getting Marcus ready to go?
I mean, that's my focus, man, being the best teammate for Marcus, being the best teammate in the locker room, anything Marcus needs, to be there for him, and just how supportive and how much he's meant to me in my career. It's time to, exchange roles and do that for him.
What do you think you can learn over these next 3 weeks?
Man, I mean, just continue to get better and see the game from a different lens, ask questions, as many questions as I can. Kind of have that time to really sit there and maybe ask DQ about situational football or go talk to the DB coach, Simo, and all those guys to see what they're thinking and how they would call this and, like, what are the rules and principles. So that's a lot I can learn.
All right, and this is Daniels on who he leans on at this period of time.
My mom and my dad, you know, they kind of try to pry things out of me and everything, so they make sure that, like, mentally, that's probably the most important thing for me, especially dealing with something I haven't dealt with before. So it's new territory for all of us, and, you know, they've just been by my side and really just helping me navigate through things.
What are you doing in practice and over the next couple of weeks? What's your plan in practice to just work on? What is it you want to work on? What will you be doing?
Man, I'll be out there practicing whatever they need me to do. If I got to do scout team, I'll have fun with that and give the best looks and really just be out here, like I said, be supportive to all my teammates and still be engaged and bring the juice and the energy.
That they were freak injuries in your mind, does that add to the frustration in a way?
Yeah, I mean, other than, you know, the one game I missed for a hamstring, you know, my knee, and then obviously my elbow, those aren't something that you could really necessarily prepare for. Those are things that, like I said, is freak accidents and things like that. So it's most definitely frustrating and at that time very, like, I would say, traumatic and stuff like that, because you never know what you do and you see different things. So I just kind of just move forward and, you know, get ready for next year.
So sort of a unique situation. He has not been cleared to play. And he is going to practice. Now, I don't know how much contact he's going to take, but it's not like it's IR, like Noah Brown. And they got to get out of the Noah Brown business. Noah Brown played 4 games this year, caught 5 passes. He was hurt last year, missed the playoff run. So they got to move on in that regard. Obviously, they're not going to do that with Jayden Daniels. But here's a thought that came up yesterday with Dan Quinn, is that their quarterback, who, you know, he didn't say that there's no way he could play this season. He went to the level of, well, he hasn't been cleared to play yet, so, you know, let's say he's not cleared to play this weekend. Then there's only 2 games left, and so forth and so on. So what you're telling your team is your best chance to win, and a guy that you put out on the field with the elbow injury, which was, you know, aggravated, let's put it that way, when he was knocked down against Minnesota, you're not going to play him. Is that a message that you're sending to your team that we're not, you know, putting out our best chance to win? And how do you think your team will respond to that? He is saying, well, I've seen no evidence of that, and doesn't believe that there's going to be any quit in his team.
I love this group. I love what they stand for. After the game, I told him, man, like, I don't want to go through something like this, but if I had to, these are the type of men I'd want to go through something really hard with, because the last 2 months for us as a team, as players and coaches, we've been as challenged as we've ever been. So they play for one another. It's not for one person. And so I think that's an important thing to remember, like when we're talking about an entire team sport, and there's like so many things for us to play for and play really hard. We're right here in the division. And we play, you know, these 17 are all we're guaranteed. So it's not like, you know, some of our other professional sports where they get to play a lot more. Like, it's really important.
And for whatever this is worth, and I would say this, I didn't think we heard this for Ron Rivera when he was going down the stretch of another 4-win season, his last season in Washington, that the players were firmly behind him. I think the players are going out of their way to say good things about Dan Quinn, and he certainly appreciates it.
This is as most challenged, I think, as I've been as a coach, you know, when you go through a spot like that. And so to hear, you know, a player say that, obviously that means a lot, because you're wanting to stay, you know, in the same spot and improve upon things. And so when you're not hitting the marks and got gut punched a few times, you want to make sure that they're staying in that fight and in that battle. And so to hear them say that, you know, that's definitely what I'd hope they would say, but to hear them say that back to you, that's a big deal to me.
Okay, so more practice today. Today is like a Thursday for them because they play on Saturday. We'll hear from Cliff Kingsbury, and I guess we won't hear from Joe Witt anymore, right? He's not the defensive coordinator, and Dan Quinn talks a couple times during the week. So we'll find out what's in store offensively for Marcus Mariota. I don't think there's anything earth-shattering for this game. A couple of college things. The portal is about to open, and there's a name in the portal who you may not be familiar with. You may not have seen him play this year, but his name is Drew Mestemaker. Drew Mestemaker is one hell of a story. He's a quarterback at North Texas, and a friend of mine went to North Texas, has had a great broadcasting career. He did games on ESPN. He's done games on Fox. He's been the voice of the Texas Rangers, the Dallas Mavericks, and he does his alma mater's games now. Dave Barnett, who's been on the show a few times over the years, and I've talked to him about Mestemaker, who's remarkable. He went to one of these top high schools in Texas. You know, Texas football is a different breed, and he went to high school in Austin and did not start at quarterback. Couldn't win the starting quarterback job in high school. He played wide receiver, he played safety, and I guess would be the backup quarterback from time to time, but couldn't win the job. Walks on at North Texas, has a redshirt year in 2024, and then wins in spring ball the starting quarterback job for this year. And all he did was throw for 4,129 yards and 31 touchdown passes. And had they managed to beat Tulane in the playoff game, they would have been in the playoff. But they lost that game, and they've got a bowl game coming up. But you won't see Mestemaker in it because he's entered the transfer portal. And the speculation is he's going to go with Lane Kiffin to LSU. And he'd have 2 years. He'd have 3 years of eligibility left, but would probably, if he plays like this, play 2 years and then go to the NFL, which is just remarkable. It just shows you that you can overlook quarterback talent at any level. Obviously, he was overlooked in high school. I guess the quarterback there was pretty good, but he couldn't win the job there. Nobody's recruiting him to play quarterback for sure. Goes to North Texas, walks on, becomes this unbelievable quarterback for them this year. And I think he had a game where he had something like 600 yards. 4,000 yards in a college season. That's a lot of yards. And he is now entering the transfer portal. And then you have Diego Pavia. And we talked about how he comported himself after he lost the Heisman, where he put up a picture on Instagram with his offensive lineman and said, F the voters. And F all voters, and then showed his lineman, said family for life. And, that's no way to handle it. He did apologize for it. But here's the thing about Diego Pavia, whose hero is Johnny Manziel. He's a small guy who can run like Manziel, and he can throw, and he threw for 4,000, had 4,000 combined yards, 36 touchdowns this year. He's going to be in the Senior Bowl. He's listed at 6 feet. If you watched him play, he can't be more than 5'10", maybe 5'9". Can he play in the NFL? We don't know. But he certainly has hurt his chances with this. He's got to make a really good showing in the Senior Bowl and convince everybody that he's not Johnny Manziel. Now, Johnny Manziel's problems were more related to his off-the-field activities than anything else. Pavia's insecurity and immaturity here could play a role. While he was at New Mexico State, he urinated on the logo in the middle of the rival New Mexico's practice field. He went to New Mexico State, walked over to New Mexico, and urinated on the practice field. That's not a good thing. That's not a good look. The athletic director, Candace Lee, said in a statement to the Tennessean, Diego knows his actions were unacceptable. He has apologized. I know he's contrite, regrets the hurt he's caused. He is passionate and an authentic competitor. And while his authenticity has been nurtured and celebrated here, it does not change the responsibility that comes with representing Vanderbilt University. Amen to that. He's one of these guys, young, guy and a small guy. And he says, I've been doubted all my life. And he's had to play with this chip on his shoulder. But, now's the time when you can make your money, and you don't make your money acting like an idiot, posting on Instagram, F all the voters. And I don't know whether he'll have enough of a showing in the Senior Bowl and enough of a showing when he participates in the Combine, assuming he's invited. But, you want to give yourself the best chance there. And I have loved watching him play. And if I had a vote, as much as I'm partial to Indiana, having sent my son there and know much he loves it, and it's hard to argue that Fernando Mendoza not only had a great year, but had the signature Heisman play when he threw that touchdown pass to beat Penn State on the road. But watching Diego Pavia play this year was pure joy. I mean, he was really exciting to watch. And if he wants to play in the NFL, and I don't know if he can, just because we've had smaller quarterbacks play doesn't mean that he's going to be able to do it. And if he is foolish like Johnny Manziel, and there's no indication of that, I mean, he's totally dedicated to his craft. And unlike Johnny Manziel, who went to Texas A&M and stayed there the minimum amount of time, he was a redshirt his first year and then played 2 years. He's bounced around. He's been at New Mexico State, and now I think he even played some junior college and plays his last 2 years at Vanderbilt. We'll see, but that's not the way you go about things. All right, coming up, Dan Graziano was on our morning show on Sportsmanlike yesterday. A couple of thoughts on what's happening around the league, including the Joe Burrow Ungeblusen way about him and the fact that they got clobbered last week at home 24-0 by Baltimore. What he reads into that situation, it's a puzzling thing where you've got a guy who's totally dedicated to football but seems at this point depressed about the game, probably depressed about losing, but still something that I'm sure is very much of a bother to him. All right, coming up, we will deal with that and much more. It's the Andy Pollin Show, ESPN 630.
The Andy Pollin Show on ESPN 630, the sports capital.
As much as I'd like to be talking about playoff scenarios for the Commanders, as my buddy Kevin Sheehan calls them, playoff scenarios, and he's kind of made a career of that. He likes to do them in December. No playoff scenarios this year. So we talk about other teams, and actually we talk about other teams that are even worse, like the New York Giants, who have only 2 wins. Commanders have 1, and right now Giants are sitting in the top spot for the draft. And look, they found their guy. They took Jackson Dart in the first round. He's played well, but he's been checked for concussions 5 times. He comes off concussion protocol and not cleared to play. In his second game back, gets knocked out of the game in a crucial series. Might they think about taking Fernando Mendoza with the top pick, assuming they have it at the end of the year? Or do they have what they want? Dan Graziano covers the league, based in New York, went to Georgetown, actually, but focuses a lot on the NFC East. And he was on our morning show on Sportsmanlike yesterday, and he thinks the Giants will do what with the top pick?
The quarterback that has been evaluated for concussions 5 times in 10 games, they're dead set on. I'm just asking.
Yeah, I mean, they traded up to get him in the first round. Like you have to be talking. Who's done it? Arizona, right?
Arizona.
It was Josh Rosen, and obviously they were right to move on from him. Dart's shown more than he ever did. Yeah, no, I think if they have the first pick, they're not taking quarterback. No, is Fernando Mendoza like is he that guy? Like, is that are you gonna is he the Joe Burrow, Andrew Luck kind of level of number 1 pick that you would definitely move off of whoever you had in order to get him? I don't know that. No, I haven't. I mean, this is literally the first time I've thought of this. But no, I don't think, and I think that probably tells you your answer.
Okay, but if you invest in a whole season in Jackson Dart, you better have yourself a backup, because this guy, and we saw it last night on the Hard Knocks, the NFC East, that Dan Quinn is telling his team, treat him like a running back when he runs. Don't assume he's going to go down. And if you continue to play like that, you're not going to have a long career in the NFL, and you're going to miss games. So I would say to the Giants, you might be thinking about it, or at least entertain some offers that maybe you can still stay high in the draft and take a quarterback, or, you sign a veteran guy. But depending on Jackson Dart for 17 games, I think is a lot to ask. Speaking of Joe Burrow and the crazy week that he had last week, where he, kind of expressed depression to some degree, falling out of love with football, which he had to defend after they lost 24-0 to the Ravens. This is Dan Graziano on what seems to be transpiring with Joe Burrow and the Bengals.
Their no-show on Sunday was one of the most shocking things that happened, I think, this weekend. Just the idea, not that they would lose to Baltimore, but just they had something on the line still and just didn't go to the game. And that, I think, is very strange when you look at Joe Burrow and his history of competitiveness. Now, when the thing happens, the press conference happens last week, later in the week, you're trying to dig on this. You're being told by a lot of people like, no, it's being read wrong. He loves football. He loves to compete. There's just some stuff going on right now. So I think he's playing because it's his job and because he likes to play. But his words last week and then the performance Sunday certainly cut against that. And I understand why you're asking the question. I don't think he's at risk of unusual risk of injury by continuing to play, right? Like he's fully healed from his injury. So
but Dan, and I'm sorry to interrupt, but I guess here's my thought process.
Yeah.
Joe Burrow, and you said it perfectly, needs to get right if it's real life or football. He needs to get right. Okay, so let's leave it at that. He is worsening his chances of getting right by risking the offseason being rehab instead of whatever else it could be.
So that just gets to that same old debate, right? Of should every quarterback whose team is eliminated not play anymore? Like at some point, you play because that's what you do. And I think he has come out and said that if he's healthy enough to play, he wants to play. And I think that's so. The Commanders shut down Jayden Daniels because they couldn't clear him for this week, and the doctors didn't think they were going to be able to clear him for next week, and then that only leaves one game. So he's been hurt 3 times this year and obviously not fully healthy. Burrow is fully healthy. Prior to the 2 interceptions in Buffalo last week, he looked like an unstoppable machine. He was awesome. So it's not as if it's been a while since we've seen him at his best. Something weird's going on, and I don't know what exactly that is. I obviously hope it's not anything serious and that he recovers from it because he is an awful lot of fun to watch. But, yeah, I think if he was at some sort of elevated injury risk because of an injury he was playing through, that would be different. But if he's fully healthy and cleared to play and it's not limiting him, then I think he's going to play.
Yeah, and he's actually playing with a metal plate in his shoe because of the toe injury, but didn't play very well last week. But has looked good since coming back. And, he wants to play. They're going to let him play. And I think all this hand-wringing about wrapping a quarterback in bubble wrap for the next year is not a really smart thing. I think the team responds to the quarterback being there. If he can play, he plays. This is the last one from Graziano, and it's on the Mike Tomlin situation. Now, the Steelers pick up a huge win over Miami on Monday night. They're tracking to win the division, win the AFC North. And then the question is, do they do a one and done in the playoffs as they have done too many times over the years for Mike Tomlin? And what does that mean from the fan base who was heard just a couple of weeks ago saying fire Tomlin? This is Graziano's take on that.
I think multiple playoff wins in a single season, and obviously he's got to start with one. It's been 9 years since he had one. The Steelers fans have been pretty clear about what annoys them, which is, it's great to win 9-10 games every year, but if that's all it ever is, that's not good enough in terms of our standard as a team that has 6 Super Bowl titles, that has all this history and wants to compete for more. So we can pick apart whether their teams have been good enough. I personally think Mike Tomlin gets the most out of his rosters. I don't think this is a particularly strong-looking roster that they have right now, and I don't expect them to win playoff games. But the answer to your question is that's what the fans want. They want a team that can be competitive in January as opposed to perennial first-round loser and afterthought, 7 seed. They're not the division champ, they'll be the 4 if they win it, but the point is the same. Like if you're the weakest team in the AFC playoff field every single year, I think that's what's getting old for the fans.
The funny thing about Tomlin and the lack of the big time success that everybody is looking for, the Super Bowl caliber season that you want to have. Look at his quarterback. Aaron Rodgers is going to the Hall of Fame. He's been one of the great quarterbacks in the history of the NFL. He's got one. Just like Tomlin's got. Tomlin's got one Super Bowl. The 2 that Ben won, he won 1 with Tomlin, and he won 1 with Cowher. And same thing, Aaron Rodgers won 1 with the Green Bay Packers. I think that's the only one that he went to. I don't think he lost one. May have lost. Maybe it was the Steelers that he lost to. But now, these are two people, Hall of Fame coach, Hall of Fame quarterback, with 1, and they're teaming up now for what could be a typical Steelers season in recent years under Tomlin, 1 and done. So that's another part of the picture in that. This was an interesting conversation yesterday. Dan Patrick had on Joe Thomas, the Hall of Fame tackle for the Cleveland Browns, never won anything, played on bad teams, but goes down as one of the best of all time. And it was about blocking Myles Garrett. And because he's playing on such a bad team, it's hard to really understand what a great season Myles Garrett is having. And the fact that he's well on track to break the all-time sack record, which is held by Michael Strahan, very controversially. Did Brett Favre take a dive on that? And they did the Jet sack exchange on the 30 for 30, and Mark Gastineau confronted Brett Favre for taking a dive. You ruined my life, man. You took my record. And then T.J. Watt, fortunately, has tied the record. So we've got 22.5 as the standard for sacks. Myles Garrett has 21.5 with 3 games to go. So you assume he's going to break the record. Will he break, though, the unofficial record, which is held by Bubba Baker? Because in 1978, believe it or not, as big a stat as sacks have become, the NFL didn't start keeping track of sacks until 1982. So even Lawrence Taylor's rookie year, there's no accounting for sacks there. And, you think about Deacon Jones. Now, Deacon Jones never played in a 16-game season. Bubba Baker in 1978 was playing the first year that the NFL went to 16 games. So he had 2 more games to get these sacks, which they didn't keep track of. But by going through the game tape, they determined that he had 23. 22.5 is the record. Doesn't seem like that much more. But, he's still got to do it. And there's a possibility that, he could get shut out in sacks. But the other thing about sacks is it's easier to get them on a good team. And the reason is you're generally ahead, and the other team is forced to throw. In the case of the Browns, they're usually behind, and the other team is looking to run clock. So the fact that he's doing that is just incredible. And here's Thomas, I think, who can describe it much better than anyone else because he's blocked against the best, and he went to the Hall of Fame and stood out on the other side of the line for Cleveland in another way, in that he was on a terrible team and still was recognized as one of the best to ever play the game. It's really a crazy juxtaposition here. But this is Thomas describing the greatness of Myles Garrett and what he has seen. He's only played against him, I guess, in training camp or in practice. But this is Thomas on what he's seen from Myles Garrett as his career advances.
Until Myles, I don't ever remember watching an NFL defensive lineman from my college days all the way through the days that I was playing and now as a fan where I said, I'm watching him, I don't think that I can block him more than my fair share when I'm at my best. And that's what I say about Myles when I watch him. I played against him when he was a rookie and I was in my last season, and I barely had a chance to try to block him and get a glove on him then. And he's like 30-40% better than he was at that time. And so I watch him and I say, I don't know how I would have been able to block him one-on-one. And I think that's the mentality that a lot of offenses, basically every offense that he's gone against this season has said, because nobody's blocking him one-on-one. Even the best tackles in the game right now are not allowed to go against him one-on-one because he is so dominant. There's nobody in the game that can block him consistently throughout the course of an entire game.
How surprised were you that he kind of took back the trade request when the Browns were willing to make him the highest paid defensive player?
I was really surprised because I had talked to him throughout the course of the holdout where he said he's not coming back and it doesn't matter. He's all about trying to win championships. And, I go on the radio a lot in Cleveland especially. And, I want to make sure that if I'm saying something, it aligns with what he's thinking and what, he is trying to get done. Because I want to make sure that this is true, what I'm saying about him. And he was telling me that it doesn't matter what the money is. He's frustrated. He's ready to leave. And unless something drastically changes from the vision that they have, he was not really ready to come back. And of course, they decided to make him the highest paid defensive player, which was surpassed by Micah Parsons later on.
But the vision didn't change, Joe. This is not a good team. He's not winning anything anytime soon, and maybe not in his career.
Yeah, I agree. So I'm trying to tell you that they must have said something in their little witch's brew that they had going on before they gave him that drink.
I think they just said, how does $40 million feel? We're not going to win anything. $40 million? All right, you know what? I don't need to win.
I think it was partly that, but I do think that they had convinced him of some vision that was more convincing than the fans have gotten of, hey, we're going to win a championship. You're going to be part of it. And I think a lot of it probably honestly had to do with Jim Schwartz on defense, as his defensive coordinator loves him. And they do have a really good defense. Didn't play well last week against the Bears, but I think they kind of built up the fact that you could be part of this great historic defense. You could do amazing things like chase the sack record. And, oh, by the way, we're going to invest in our offense. Maybe not year one, but we're going to get it right on offense. With a quarterback, adding some weapons on the outside, and then in year two, we're going to be competitive and have a chance with this great defense led by you. And, oh, by the way, you can finish your career where you started, which is very rare in the NFL. And so I think all those things kind of put together made up maybe 40%. And then, yeah, like you said, 60% was, hey, we'll pay you a lot of money. I'm like, okay, that sounds good too.
It's Joe Thomas with Dan Patrick. Look, you can be convinced of those things when there is a contract that's going to pay you $40 million a year sitting in front of you. That kind of greases the skids for all of that. And the other thing is, even though it's a lot of money, at some point there will be an offer for Myles Garrett, who is a game changer. I mean, there's no question about that. There's very few on defense who are at that level. And just think of the numbers that he's closing in on the sack record for a bad team that's usually behind, and the other team is running the ball, not throwing the ball, and he can't tee off the way he wants to. And you know, who knows? You put him on a great team, you bookend him with another great pass rusher. You never know what could happen here. I mean, there was actual serious discussion from the Philadelphia Eagles about adding Myles Garrett. I mean, that's already a great team. So you put Myles Garrett on the Philadelphia Eagles, who won the Super Bowl last year. Whew, man. So, yeah, it's something historic. I would really like to look, though, at the career numbers of Deacon Jones, who played most of his career with the Rams. He also played with the Chargers and finished up his career here in Washington. They did not keep track of sack numbers. I believe I heard Steve Sable say that they looked at the NFL films and they thought that one year he got 24 sacks. And 24 sacks in a 14-game schedule, whew, that's crazy. But also the rules were different, and he could use the head slap. You can't do that anymore. That was his move. And he was really fast. He was really a prototype for today's defensive end. And what he would do is he'd come off the ball, and the first thing he'd do is he'd deliver a right hand to the side of your head to stun you, and then he'd be able to swim move past you. And once he got into the backfield, he was so fast he'd bring you down. Plus, he played with other great defensive players. Merlin Olsen, also in the Hall of Fame, regarded as, if not the best defensive tackle of all time, one of the best. Myles Garrett playing with a bad team. Now, as you heard Joe Thomas say, they're a good defense, but it's a good defense that's always looking to get the other team off the field when they're trying to run clock and not necessarily throw the ball. Really interesting story about the sacks, at least to me. All right, Bram is coming up next, and I will see you back here tomorrow morning at 9 a.m.